And that has been the haunting sound in the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv over the past 24 hours. Strikes and shelling. It just hasn't stopped in Ukraine's capital, a horrific scene, and it has escalated very quickly this week. And we want to learn more about this and the potential fallout from this attack by Russia on Ukraine. And we're happy this morning to be joined by University of Washington professor and Ambassador John Koenig. Good to have you, sir.
Good morning, Bill.
Okay, so let's just start at the very beginning. Why is Russia invading Ukraine, and why now?
Well, I think Russia wants to reestablish really a sphere of influence in the region that includes Ukraine, and that includes a kind of control over Ukraine's foreign and security policy, which the United States and other countries and NATO do not accept, but nonetheless seems to be the principal objective of Putin in ordering this invasion. He has talked about kind of twisted history of the illegitimacy of a separate Ukrainian nationality and other things, but it seems increasingly clear that this is a regime change operation intended to put a compliant government in charge in Kyiv in order to change the orientation of the Ukrainian foreign and security policy. Got you.
So we are getting news this morning that Ukraine will consider Russia's offer to hold diplomatic talks in Belarus. So you think that is what Putin is aiming for here, or is this just window dressing the idea that we're going to actually sit down and have what they would call peace talks?
Well, we will only know for sure once the talks occur. It's hard to trust Vladimir Putin, undoubtedly. Clearly, he's been lying a lot over the last several months and maybe years. But he has been clear all of the time that he opposes very, very strongly a NATO future for Ukraine and for Georgia and certain other states in the immediate vicinity of Russia. I was at the Munich Security Conference in 2007, where he first warned the West that this path that we were working on with Central and Eastern Europeans was one that Russia would block, essentially, if it had to. That seems to be happening.
Okay, so the sanctions that we're talking about, worldwide sanctions against Russia, including, export blocks on technology. Now, how would that work? Do you think the new sanctions will be effective, and the sanctions that other countries and NATO are imposing on Russia?
Yes, perhaps, but it takes a lot of time for sanctions to take effect, and they need to be coupled with a kind of strategy, a kind of diplomatic and political and security strategy. So sanctions on their own have not proven to be terribly effective at changing a country's approach to what it regards as its vital interest. Just look at Iran. Just look at any number of other cases where sanctions have been applied strenuously for many.
Okay, so what is the risk of the war widening? I mean, is there a chance of Putin trying to strike a NATO nation in retaliation?
There is always a risk of this because Putin is rather unpredictable, but I think we ought not to think it's likely. It's probably very, very unlikely. He knows that the Article 5 arrangements, the guarantee that NATO allies will come to each other's defense, would kick in, and that would confront him with a vastly different security challenge than he has right now. So I think this is mainly about Ukraine.
What about retaliation for the sanctions that are imposed already? You talk about blocks on technology and so forth, and we know that Russians have hacked into computer systems here in the United States. Do you see that sort of a retaliatory strike from Russia in light of the sanctions imposed?
Could very well happen. We will have to wait and see, and we should do what we can to prepare for it. The Russians are very sophisticated at cyber attacks. So are we, by the way. And we could get into a kind of shadow cyber war. It's very hard to attribute cyber attacks with sufficient surety that you can actually make a counterattack. We need to be very, very vigilant about our cybersecurity under these circumstances.
Is this just about Ukraine from Russia's perspective, as far as you can tell at this point, or is there the threat of a wider war breaking out, nuclear missiles and so forth?
I think it's mainly about Ukraine. There's always a risk of a wider war to break out, and that's one reason why we, I think, should be, first of all, supporting the Ukrainian people as they try to stand up to this aggression from Russia, but also looking for ways to de-escalate. We should not seek to escalate this conflict. The risks are too great. We are talking about a country that, even though it's sometimes described as nothing more than a great gas station, it is a very, very powerful nation. It may have serious problems, but it has a capacity to hurt us beyond anything we have seen in the last 60 years. So we need to be very, very alert to possibilities to de-escalate. And that's one reason why I'm somewhat encouraged by this notion that there could be negotiations on an arrangement that would focus on the neutrality of Ukraine.
Ambassador John Koenig with the University of Washington, thank you so much for your time and your perspective. We really do appreciate it.
My pleasure.